Then I was finally allowed to swim again, like a month before the race. But then I just had a stupid clipping in incident on my bike, and like, just like, you just sort of fall over. But I fell over onto a rock and split my knee open and had to get a lot of stitches.
Nice.
Um, and so then I couldn't get back in the water for a while because that needed to
You
heal.
so how'd the swimming go for the
Mess.
real event? I mean, you barely did any training.
It was actually fine. I don't
Really?
know what happened. Maybe it's just because it was cold enough that, like,
You numbed everything.
yeah, it's just like a big ice bath. It was 33 degrees when we got in the water, like the air temperature. And then the water temperature was like 58 or something. It was
Jesus.
freezing cold. It was beautiful, but
Well, yeah, sounds great.
yeah. And then during that ride for Tahoe, like during the race itself, I had the worst cramping I've ever had. And like all of the major muscles in my legs, all of them cramped. 80
Mm.
miles into the bike ride, and it's a 112-mile bike ride. And like, I remember getting, like, it started to feel bad, and then I was like, I'll just keep going. I was like trying to drink more fluids and all the things. It just got worse and worse. And then I remember at one point I hopped off the bike to like try to stretch for a second. And like, as I put my second foot down, thank goodness I had gotten off the bike, but as I put my second foot down, all of like I could feel my whole quad in
Just
both
cramp up.
quads and my glutes, just, yeah, and hamstring, like all of them just like seized, and I fell
Mm.
over. I was crying. It was awful. And then I was just like lying there by the side of the road crying. And like, at that point it was towards the back. And so everybody else is miserable too, right? Like everybody else is, and everybody at that point knows that like they're almost done with the bike, but then you have to run a full marathon. So you're generally pretty grumpy at that stage in an Ironman.
Oh my God.
And so everybody just like rode past me, didn't say anything, like no care. um, I think at one point I was like, can somebody help me? Can you send somebody to help me? Like I was ready to drop from the race.
Yeah.
If an official person had come by and offered for me to drop out of the race, I definitely would have. And then this guy, but I was like starting to feel a little bit helpless in the sense of like I at least needed to get far enough to get to a place where somebody
Can
from
help
the
you.
race would be able to help me. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what I was going to do. Well, lying there trying to figure out what I was going to do. And this guy starts circling on his bike and he was like, "Hey, are you okay?" I was like, "No." He
Doesn't look
was
like
like,
I'm okay.
I was like, "No." And he was like, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "Can I give you some gels?" And I was like, "Maybe." Um, I ended up taking all of his gels. And he was like, "Can you please take this?" He had like a 4-hour energy or whatever. And I was like, "I've never taken that before. I don't take new things on races." He was like, "You probably should consume this though."
Yeah.
And he was like, "I'm a nurse. Like, you're cramping. You definitely need more electrolytes."
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, "Maybe, thank you." Um, and then he was like, "Can I do anything else?" And I was like, "Nope. I'm gonna get back on soon." He rode on. I got back on my bike and excruciatingly finished that. I don't know how I finished that, but I did. And then I remember getting off the bike, and like a volunteer always takes your bike and puts it in the corrals. And then my family is like cheering for me, and then they can see me walking. Like I had an official had to come help. A volunteer had to come like hold me up basically. I was like stuck in bike position. I was like sort of crampingly stuck in like the tuck.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I tottered into the tent. They were like, "Do you need a doctor?" I was like, "Yep." And then they had a doctor come talk to me, and she was giving me Gatorade, and she was like, "I think you should stop. Like, I don't think you should continue with this race." And I was like, "But if I wanted to continue," and I was like, "You're not the first doctor to tell me I should not do this race.
Yeah.
So I'm here.
Here,
Like, I'm
yeah,
gonna
you're
do
in it.
this. Like, I'm going to, you all will have to peel me off of this course." And she was like, "Well, you have 7 more minutes to get on this 10 before you will actually just be disqualified." And I was, because they have cutoff times for
Mhm.
various pieces. And I was like, "Okay, so we have 5 minutes for me to talk to you." And I was like, "Tell me what to do." And she was like, "Oh my God, you people are insane." And she was like, "Just eat all the things, drink all the things at every station, and please do not start running for at least 6 miles. Like you need to walk for at least a full hour." to like
Wow.
try to restore yourself and like drink and eat as much as you possibly can ingest. And I was like, okay. And she was like, but really you should stop. And I was like, okay, but I'm not going to. She's like, I want to give you an IV right now.
Uh,
Like if I had stopped, I would have been taken up to the medical tent and given an IV. But I was like, I'm gonna go anyway. So that I got out like 30 seconds before that tent closed and walked for the first six and watched for the first hour, um, and ate and drank all the things, like lots of chicken broth and Coke. And then I was like watching my watch, doing the math about like, I was like, well, if I'm committed to actually needing to be peeled off of this course, like I'm gonna start running. It'll be slow, but I'm gonna see what I can do.
yeah.
And then I started running, and it's amazing what the body can do. Like
Mhm.
I by that point I had had a lot of salt and food and beverage. And so I actually felt pretty good. And the more I did, the more I ingested, like, and moving, I think actually helped because
Wow.
by that point, like blood was flowing again. I don't know how this all worked out, but
Sure.
I had a great run for the most
Wow.
part and like didn't hurt that bad.
Hmm.
And then I it got very dark and cold, but like I'm like, it was an out and multiple out and backs. And at one point I see the guy who had given me his gels and I was like, bike guy. And he was like, what? You're here? And he was like, how have you made it? I was like, I
Right.
don't know.
I don't know.
And then and then like later, probably in mile 15 or so, I come up behind somebody. At that point, there's not many people left on the course because it took me a really long time. And I come up and I was like, bike guy? And he was like, bike girl? And I was like, hey. And he was walking.
Uh-huh.
And I stopped walking and running for a second. I was like, thank you so much. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing great now. And like this would not be the case. And he was like, well, now my ankle hurts. And I was
Jeez.
like, oh no. I was like, I'll walk with you. And he was like, you don't have to hang with me. And I was like, dude,
You
you
saved
got
me.
me through part of it. I was like, I'll hang with you for at least like a few minutes. We ended up like, long story short, we finished the race together.
Oh, wow.
Um, and yeah, and then we became Facebook friends and we're in touch for a little while.